bring in our guest from Baltimore, Maryland, Stifel Nicolaus equity analyst Meyer Shields. Shields, by the way, raised Berkshire shares to hold last month. For years, he'd had to sell on that stock, the first since 2004. Meyer, this surprise resignation, what does it tell you about what is going on at Berkshire?
It tells us, I think, as John had mentioned before, that we don't have very much insight at all into who the likely successors are. So I think the first issue just raises the question of the adequacy of Berkshire's disclosure. Mm-hmm. And that leads to the second point, and that is there's an enormous amount of trust me in what I would say in Berkshire's valuation. And that leaves the stock, I think, very vulnerable when things look less trustworthy. Again, I have no idea if there's any illegality, but it doesn't look good.
Why don't you explain that in a little more detail? What is that trust me factor? We talk about with oil, the fear premium. What's the trust me factor in Berkshire shares?
The trust me is the relative opacity of the disclosures that Berkshire has relative to even companies that are much smaller. We don't have a lot of details in the specific manufacturing, service, and retail businesses. I would say on the insurance side, there is less disclosure regarding the quality of earnings. And there's an enormous amount of effort on the other side of Warren Buffett saying that this is a company with unusual integrity and unusual honesty.
Well, you see, now here's the thing. This is what is also, I think, plaguing another company we've been covering, which is News Corp and Rupert Murdoch. And the question about succession is you get to a point here at this company, right, where this non-disclosure of succession becomes a question about whether or not Warren Buffett is really enhancing or adding to the shareholder value at Berkshire. Does it not?
I think it does. I think it's an important question because Warren Buffett is clearly an icon and deservedly so. But that does raise the significance of who takes over whenever he departs. And hopefully he'll live forever. I'm not sure that the odds are pointed in that direction. And I think investors should have some sort of clue in terms of who's likely to take over.
Well, we happen to have a Berkshire shareholder now joining with us, straight from upstate or upper New York, I should say.
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
You can say that bad word.
Mario Gabelli with us from Gamco. So Mario, what do you make of this?
Well, look, the company's got 140 billion market cap or 200 billion market cap. It's a large company, very complicated, but not very complicated. It's manufacturing, it's insurance, it's the float, it's the investment. So who's going to run the manufacturing? Does it have to be run by one person? Why not split it up down the road? There are a lot of things we can think about. And as you know, in 4 weeks on April 29th, we'll be at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, and we'll host a dinner for a lot of value investors that night, 150 of our closest friends.
But are you more skeptical? Are you Are you upset at all the fact that this has happened and the lack of disclosure?
Yeah, the magic in Berkshire has never been whether Ajit runs it or Sokol runs it or Abel or Mike Rose or who it is. The magic is Warren Buffett and how he allocates cash. And he's going to still be there. And it underscores one thing. At 80, you don't need hand-eye coordination to allocate capital.
I got to ask you the question that everybody's talking about this morning. You're an influential guy. If you buy shares in a company, a lot of people say, Gabelli just bought. That's interesting to me. You've got a huge team of analysts, and they come to you, I would assume, with ideas, investment ideas. If you were to take one of those ideas and then later find out that that person had bought shares for their personal account, what would be your first of all, does it happen? And number two, what is your reaction?
In the money management business, you have to make you have to have a clear understanding that there are rules on the road with regards to an analyst buying stock and then recommending it. So we have structures and compliance procedures in place that doesn't occur. Mm-hmm. Okay, and within the framework of what happened at Sokol, I'll let you guys debate that. From my point of view, you have to understand the internal procedures of Berkshire, and I don't know what they are. What we did today was we called Bombardier to find out what that means for the NetJets order. We would call BBA Aviation, which runs Signature, and what they think about the fact that Sokol's not leaving. We would dig a little further into the notion of what he said with regards to looking at a utility company. Which one would he want to buy? Which one is he going to be elephant hunting? And what does that mean for Lubrizol? Bottom line, Berkshire is a huge aircraft carrier that is not going to be roiled over by a small little Somalian dynamic.
So, Mario, then the assessment is that Sokol leaving is not going to be this huge hole at Berkshire then?
No, it's going to be a lot of work to explain it, and not a big dynamic.
Let me just, Meyer, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so give me your take. Is it going to be a huge hole at Berkshire, though, the fact that he's not there anymore?
No, I think as far as Berkshire goes, it's very decentralized, and most of the company's operations are going to continue without missing a beat. What my concern is much more on the valuation of the company.
Company's worth a material premium to where it's trading at. The question is mark to market, what happens, as opposed to what the intrinsic underlying value of the company. I don't think Meyer would disagree that it's not going to have an impact on the intrinsic value. What he's talking about is the public trading price, I hope.
Is that right, Meyer?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Mary, we mentioned earlier that Buffett made it clear that David Sokol for a couple of years has said, look, I'd like to move on. Did you ever think that he was going to be the successor?
I have no comment on who the successor was. I think the directors of the company, I really believe that people like Murphy would not serve on that board if Warren says to the world, hey, I have named a successor, and you guys know who it is. It's in your envelope. It's there. Now, I can't answer that.
Mary, have you talked with David Sokol before? You never met him?
Oh, I met him at the Berkshire meetings and would say hello, but nothing specific.
What did you think of him?
No
what do
comment.
you think of him? Oh, come on.
No point of view.
No point of view on David.
I do have friends, and our own firm does rent NetJets, and so we watched the change from Santulli to Sokol and what that meant in terms of how they operate.
Okay.
But you can't see in terms of personality. It's not a personality business. A prince kissing a frog does not change the frog if it's a bad business into a princess. Okay, so this is...
The stock is down. I mean,
the stock is down, so what?
It's down about 2%.
So, Mr. Market always... Listen, Mr. Market, it's the Berkshire show today.
Right. All right. We are going to talk more about not just Berkshire, but also about News Corp and others. Meyer, we're going to let you go now. Thank you very much for joining us.